Philadelphia in the 1770s was the largest city in British North America, home to nearly 40,000 people and growing fast. It was a city of brick and ambition, built on the banks of the Delaware River by Quakers who dreamed of a place where people could live and worship freely. By the eve of the American Revolution, that dream had grown into something its founders never imagined: the birthplace of a new nation. In this video, I use modern AI tools to bring historic paintings and engravings to life, allowing us to shift perspective, change camera angles, and move through the same scenes in ways their original artists never could. To understand Philadelphia, we must first approach it as most visitors did, by water. The Delaware River was the city's connection to the world. Ships arrived daily from London, the Caribbean, and other colonial ports, their holds full of tea, sugar, manufactured goods, and enslaved people. The waterfront stretched for nearly 2 miles, crowded with wharves, warehouses, and the masts of merchant vessels. Looking west from the river, the city spread out in an orderly grid, its streets lined with red brick buildings and church steeples rising above the rooftops. It was the most modern city in America, and soon it would become the most important. At the heart of Philadelphia stood a modest red brick building that would change the world. The Pennsylvania State House, now known as Independence Hall, was where the Continental Congress met to debate the future of the American colonies. The building itself was elegant, but not grand, Georgian in style, with a wooden steeple that held the bell, later known as the Liberty Bell. Inside the assembly room was where delegates from 13 colonies gathered in the summer of 1776 to take an irreversible step. The room was not large, perhaps 40 feet square, with tall windows that let in the humid Philadelphia air, along with the flies that tormented the delegates. Here, on July 4th, 1776, the Continental Congress adopted the Declaration of Independence. Thomas Jefferson's words that all men are created equal, that they are endowed with certain unalienable rights, were radical and dangerous. Every man who signed that document was committing treason against the British Crown. They pledged their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honour, knowing that failure meant the gallows. When you stand in this room today, you can still feel the weight of that moment. Step outside Independence Hall and walk east on Chestnut Street, then turn onto Market Street, and you enter the commercial heart of colonial Philadelphia. This was where the city did business, where fortunes were made and lost, and where ordinary people came to buy the necessities of life. Market Street took its name from the market sheds that ran down its centre. Twice a week, farmers from the surrounding countryside brought their goods to sell: fresh vegetables, butter, eggs, live chickens, and meat. The noise was constant, vendors calling out prices, customers haggling, carts rumbling over cobblestones, the smell of fresh bread from nearby bakeries mixed with less pleasant odours from the fish stalls and the gutters. The shops along Market Street sold everything a colonial household might need. Silversmiths, hatters, printers, and apothecaries displayed their wares behind small paned windows. This was also the street of Benjamin Franklin's print shop, where the Pennsylvania Gazette was published, and where Poor Richard's Almanac became a bestseller. Commerce and ideas flowed together through these busy blocks, creating a city that was both practical and progressive. Rising above the rooftops of colonial Philadelphia was the steeple of Christ Church, at 196 feet, the tallest structure in the American colonies. This Anglican church, built between 1727 and 1744, was where the most prominent citizens of Philadelphia came to worship. Walk inside and you would find yourself surrounded by history. George Washington sat in pew 58. Benjamin Franklin's pew was number 70. John Adams, Betsy Ross, and other founders worshipped here regularly. The church's clear glass windows flooded the white interior with light, reflecting the rational spirit of the Enlightenment that shaped so many of its congregation. But Christ Church represented only one strand of Philadelphia's religious life. The city was founded by Quakers, who still held their silent meetings in simple meeting houses. Jewish, Catholic, Lutheran, and Presbyterian congregations all had their places of worship. This diversity was intentional. William Penn had established Pennsylvania as a holy experiment in religious tolerance, and that experiment was flourishing. In Philadelphia, what you believed was your own business, a radical idea in an age when religion and state were intertwined across Europe. No single person shaped colonial Philadelphia more than Benjamin Franklin. Arriving as a penniless 17-year-old in 1723, he transformed himself into a printer, scientist, inventor, diplomat, and the most famous American of his age. Franklin's fingerprints were everywhere in the city. He founded the Library Company of Philadelphia in 1731, the first lending library in America, because he believed that ordinary citizens deserved access to knowledge. He established the American Philosophical Society, where the colony's brightest minds gathered to share ideas. He created the Pennsylvania Hospital, the Union Fire Company, and helped found what would become the University of Pennsylvania. His print shop on Market Street produced newspapers, pamphlets, and books that spread Enlightenment ideas throughout the colonies. His experiments with electricity made him world famous. His inventions, from the Franklin stove to bifocal glasses, improved daily life. By the 1770s, Franklin was in his 70s and spending most of his time in London and Paris, but his spirit still animated the city he had helped build. Philadelphia's culture of practical innovation, civic improvement, and intellectual curiosity was largely his creation. Walk down to the Delaware River and you enter a rougher, louder world. Dock Street and the surrounding waterfront were where Philadelphia's wealth actually came from, and where the men who created that wealth lived and worked. The wharves were crowded with activity from dawn to dusk. Longshoremen unloaded cargo from ships arriving from London, Bristol, and the West Indies. Barrels of rum, crates of tea, bolts of cloth, and countless other goods moved from ship to warehouse to shop. The smell of tar, salt water, and rotting fish hung in the air. Sailors from a dozen nations crowded the taverns, spending their wages before their ships departed. The taverns of the waterfront were essential to Philadelphia's political life. The City Tavern on 2nd Street was where merchants, lawyers, and politicians gathered to drink Madeira wine and debate the crisis with Britain. John Adams called it the most genteel tavern in America. But humbler establishments served the working men who kept the city running. In these smoky rooms over mugs of ale and rum, ordinary Philadelphians argued about taxes, liberty, and whether it was time to break with the mother country. South of the commercial district lay Society Hill, the most fashionable neighborhood in colonial America. Here, the wealthy merchants and professionals who ran Philadelphia built elegant Georgian townhouses of red brick with white trim, their facades announcing success and refinement. The houses of Society Hill were built for comfort and display. Large windows let in light. High ceilings kept rooms cool in Philadelphia's hot summers. Imported wallpaper, fine furniture, and silver tea services filled the interiors. Servants, some enslaved, maintained these households and served at the elaborate dinners where Philadelphia's elite entertained each other. But this wealth existed alongside contradictions that the Revolution would force Americans to confront. Philadelphia was home to the largest population of enslaved people in the North. Slave auctions took place at the London Coffee House on Front Street. Even as delegates debated liberty and equality at Independence Hall, enslaved men and women worked in the kitchens and stables of their homes. The Quakers were beginning to question slavery, and Philadelphia would eventually become a center of the abolitionist movement. But in the 1770s, the institution remained deeply embedded in the city's economy and society. By the mid-1770s, Philadelphia was a city on edge. The disputes with Britain that had simmered for years were reaching a boiling point. News of battles at Lexington and Concord arrived in April 1775, and suddenly, the theoretical debates about rights and representation became a matter of life and death. The city transformed. Militia companies drilled on the commons. Gunsmiths worked overtime producing weapons. Women organised to boycott British goods and sew uniforms for the Continental Army. The streets that had buzzed with commerce now buzzed with revolution. When the Declaration of Independence was first read aloud to the public in the State House yard on July 8, 1776, the crowd erupted in cheers, and that night they tore down the King's coat of arms and burned it in a bonfire. But revolution brought suffering too. When the British captured Philadelphia in September 1777, thousands of residents fled. The occupation lasted 9 months, and when the British finally withdrew, they left a city scarred by war. Yet Philadelphia survived and rebuilt, and for a crucial decade after the war, it served as the capital of the new nation. The place where the Constitution was written and where the American experiment truly began. Standing here, looking back at these scenes, it is remarkable to think how much began in this one small city. The ideas debated in its taverns, written in its print shops, and declared in its state house would reshape the world. And through these reconstructions, we get just a glimpse of what it was like to walk these streets when America was being born. If there's another city or another moment in time you'd like to see brought back to life, let me know in the comments. I'd love to keep building this journey into the past with you. Thank you for watching.